Now you can hear me. Let me say that again. We are live. It's Phil, your favorite YouTuber. And we are going to talk about US government. Now, did you guys receive the email from Jayza explaining the new schedule? Because it was confusing, right? Because I teach US government 2 times and it's kind of difficult for me to teach the same class 2 times online, right? So everybody that's in government is going to have class with me on Tuesdays, and then on Thursday we will not have government class, but I will be here if you want to ask me questions on Skype, if you want to ask me questions on WhatsApp, but you have to respect, I believe it's Miss Summer's class that you have on the other day, either Miss Summer or Mr. Gibson. Oh, I'm talking to you like with the 10th grade. Tim or Summer. But anyway, so I hope you understand that. But like I said, I'm available if you have questions about the assignments, if you need to do a Skype call or a WhatsApp call, you can call me and I can help you do these assignments, okay? But, let me say hello to everybody first. Mohammed was here first, so he has to buy brownies for everybody. No, actually, no. Whoever is last has to buy brownies for everybody. So it's no, Zaloka. You're buying brownies for everybody. I know. I'm going to turn my camera on in a second, Carolina. I need to share my screen first, which I'm going to do in a second. But let me say hello. We have Fox Nerd, which is Eric, I believe. I forgot. We have Carolina. Hello, Carolina. We have Gustavo Doci. Nice suit, Gustavo. Leonardo Pinheiro. Nice to see you, little Leo. Sophia is there. Thais. Let me see who else is there. Zaloka. Oh, Eric. Yeah. Good to see you, Eric. And Mohammed brought pancakes. I prefer pancakes because I have syrup in my house. But before I will say hello in the camera in a second. Yasmin, yes, I know you're Yasmin because I remember your email from ninth grade. Look at this. I'm going to share the screen real quick, and I'm going to yell at you. Look at this, guys. You really, really, really have to do your assignments. Maybe this is not totally updated. I hope it isn't because we don't have that many assignments done. So far, Lucas has done 3. No, Yasmin. Yasmin is in a leaderboard with 4 assignments completed, or at least registered here. Guys, we are on to chapter 2. So these mini quizzes, this is only registering your mini quizzes, not the journals and everything. You really have to do these quizzes, okay? These quizzes are so important because we don't really talk about the quizzes during the class, basically because I don't have access to the quizzes. So all I can do is just remind you that, hey, you need to do your quizzes. And here, if anybody wants this document, actually, I'm going to send it to everybody, okay? Use this to kind of get an idea of what you have to do. And it's basically your mini quizzes, but then you need to put your journal entries with it. Okay, so there's a lot of these mini quizzes. Does anybody know the answer? Anybody that's done these mini quizzes? How many questions are there? Is it 10 or is it 20? In either case, as soon as I finish a lesson, like today we are on chapter 2, we're going to finish lesson 3 and lesson 4. Maybe you can't do it right after the class because you have another class or something to do, but try to find time either on Wednesday or Friday to do the mini quizzes. At the end of every week, do the mini quizzes. At the speed that we're going, we are usually finishing 2 lessons per class because there's a lot of content, a lot of information. I'm stopping to show you how to do the journals. So usually we only finish about 2 lessons per class. So at the end of every week, hey, do 2 mini quizzes, okay? And if anybody has the answer, how many questions are in your mini quiz, that's what you have. But look at that. It's all quizzes, 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 quizzes. Oh my God, so many quizzes. Okay? So that's US government. And I'll say the same thing. Here, I'll get myself on the camera. Where am I? Hey guys, look at my hair is going up. Sophia said, I think 10. And okay, but she's not sure. Oh, that's your dog. Oh, I liked the dog. We had to do all the quizzes up to chapter 2, about 10 to 20 questions each. Cool. Yeah, we are now chapter 2, and we're going to do lesson 3 and 4. So basically, yeah, you're correct, Mohammed. You have to have all those quizzes done. Don't wait. Don't get backed up because then, yes, it's scary. If you look at this long list here, that's scary. Like, oh my God. But if you do like I told you, after every lesson, hey, the quizzes are going to take what? 20, 30 minutes maybe for you to do. If you have a question on the quiz that you don't know, you can email me, or like I said, you can find me on WhatsApp, on the phone. Actually, let me leave the group on in case anybody has any questions. There you go. So there's high school, 10th grade. Oh, that's 10th grade. You guys are 11th grade. There you go. 10th grade, 11th grade. So you can ask me a question there. You can ask me live right now, or on Skype. Okay. I'm not going to write my Skype address here so people don't get it. Oh boy. But Jason has it. You can ask Jason. Anyway, let me turn this off. So we're going to move ahead. We're going to go to, and by the way, I can see all your work here, guys. So if I want to see who's doing what, I could just go on the parent dashboard. I can click on somebody's name, right? So maybe, let's see, Sophia. What is Sophia doing? And then I can see United States government, and I can see the grades, and boom. Oh, good job, Sophia. Sophia she did some of her work, so that's good, okay? You want to do that. This is, I believe, Muhammad, because he's the first student, so usually when I go there, so he's done a few of these. Mohammed, introduce yourself. Oh, no, you did, because it's non-graded. That's why there's a 0, guys. It's because it's non-graded. But yeah, you gotta move ahead. So anyway, let's go back to where we were. We are in chapter 2. We did this already, lesson 1 and lesson 2. Just as a reminder, lesson 1, you had to answer this question. Choose one of these 2 historical thinkers and tell me how their principles influenced the founding fathers, okay? Does that make sense? And then, of course, you're going to attach your graphic organizer with the different rights, which is all the way up here. And I showed you how to do that in the last video. If you didn't see it, check it out. You can copy and paste this and do a little graphic organizer telling me what you think are the most important rights, but also tell me if you thought that these colonists had these rights before 1776, if they have them now, and include your own notes. Okay, so that's a big one. Okay, there's a lot of stuff to do here. The good news is that the next one, which is lesson 2, the journal entry is very simple. Ask any questions you have about the reading. Remember, you'll still need to attach your notes to the journal entry. Okay? That's basically it. So it's very open. So now we are here, chapter 2, lesson 3. So my suggestion to you is to open that. Let me close this. Let me close this. That was from the last class. And we're here. Oh, no, we're not. Give me a second, guys. Sorry. We're going to click that. So what are the purposes of government? So we're going to do the same thing that we've done every other class. We're just going to scroll down. And remember, when you see include in your notes, this is something that obviously you need to include in your notes. Nice title, right? How did the Articles of Confederation reflect colonists' experience with government? So well, I have this page open already. So this is how I'm going to do that. I'm going to erase this. This is for history. So I can erase that. And this is chapter 2, lesson 2, journal. Remember that including your notes is going to be towards the bottom. So here you can have your notes. And then is include with notes. And let's see what the question is. I'm just going to copy and paste it, and then we can read it together. Yeah, all right. So let's go here. Establishing a new democracy wasn't easy, and the Articles of Confederation weren't perfect. Part of your government studies is to understand that establishing a democracy in governing takes persistence and willingness to always keep finding solutions to problems. Analyze the Articles of Confederation, which we will do, to put yourself in the early founders' shoes. A graphic organizer in your notes, like the one below, can help you think about the articles, their problems, and possible solutions. Oh boy, so what do I do? If I go back to Blackboard, I'm going to slow down a little bit in case some of you are lost. Click on this. And a little graphic organizer should open. Or not. The articles of memory activity. Huh. All right, that didn't open. Welcome to the internet. Let me see if I have it below. This organizer was created using Microsoft Smart Art. Oh, you know what it is? It probably didn't open because I'm not using a Word. So probably if you open, you have a graphic organizer. If you're typing your notes, look for similar tools in your software or online to create a visual or other elements you need to help. Okay, so basically, guys, what you want to do here is, as we're reading about the Articles of Confederation, you want to organize the ideas in the articles. So, for example, I can create a table. That's one thing that I can do. So I can create a table. I could have, let me put like 3 columns or 4, maybe 6 rows. Okay. So here I can have the Articles of Confederation. I can have a problem. I can have a solution. And I can have maybe did it work? Okay. So maybe a problem was taxation. Okay. So then I put the solution. What did the Articles of Confederation use as a solution for taxation? And then here I could say, did it work? So maybe I could find maybe uniting the states. What was the solution for that? Did it work? Remember, the Articles of Confederation were before the Constitution, so not everything that they tried actually worked. That's one thing that I could use. So whatever way that you know to organize, you can use. And then put that as include in your notes. Since I can't see the image, you will have to be creative. Let me check back here to see if everybody's with me. Where's my StreamYard? There it is. Why the journals don't show with the quizzes? Leonardo, if I knew, I promise you that I would tell you, but I actually don't know. But good question. But you have the quizzes. It's there for you, okay? So let's get back to business. Let's finish this lesson here. Okay, so we have lesson 3 and we have lesson 4. So the Articles of Confederation, what were they? It was like the first constitution of America. And under the Articles of Confederation, each state collected its own tax money and chose how to spend it. The national government could not collect taxes. But today, Americans pay taxes to the federal, state, and local government. The federal government uses the tax money and distributes it among all the states. The states do not receive the same amount of money, nor do they receive funding in proportion to their population or to the amount of federal taxes their citizens pay. For example, New Mexico gets $2.03 for every dollar, and that you pay in federal taxes. In Minnesota, only gets 72 cents, okay? So considering these two different systems of taxation, compared to the system today, what are some of the benefits and drawbacks of the system of taxation under the Articles of Confederation? So what do you think would be something positive of letting every state kind of be independent with no federal government and having every state charge its own taxes? What could be a negative of this? Okay. What are some possible benefits and drawbacks to today's system? And which do you think is most fair? Okay, so as you are, as I'm talking, how come this is not opening? Guys, today I'm having so many issues with everything. It's driving me nuts. Look at that. Today is not a happy computer day. This is not opening for me for some reason. But, by the way, you can use this here to kind of give you sort of an idea of what to do in that first question. I just can't open it for whatever reason, because today my computer is crazy. Anyway, so government under the Articles of Confederation. By the way, if you have any answers to these questions, you can write them in the chat box and I will be happy to read them, okay? I'll be checking in every 5 minutes or so to see what you guys are writing. So, how did the Articles of Confederation reflect the colonists' experience with government? Before we move ahead, we kind of stopped, right? We stopped down here. This is the journal question. Under the Articles of Confederation, each state collected its tax money. So guys, this is actually the journal question. See, that's why it's important to look first. So that first question that I just put to you is actually going to be your journal question, okay? So again, you don't have to write a full book. You can just answer, okay? One of the benefits of this system is that, blah, blah, blah. One of the drawbacks of this system is that, da, da, da. Okay, and then repeat that for this one. I think that the old system is better because, and then you just write what you feel is the best option out of the two. Okay? And let's see if there's another journal question, because sometimes there are. But I believe that, no, there's another journal question. What's the importance of Shays' rebellion? To what change did it lead? What historic current event could be compared to Shays? Okay, so remember, guys, when you have these questions, best thing you can do is already put them in your little file here. So when we get to that part of the text, you will be able to answer them. Sorry about the little confusion in the beginning, but here's the second. Actually, it's the first one, the first journal question. So you have two journal questions, okay? And then you have your notes, and then you have that little graphic organizer. There you go. Cool. So let's move ahead. Let's see if everybody is with me first. Is everybody with me? Yes. Awesome. I'm going to put my little guy on right there. So what was the government like under the Articles of Confederation? Well, first we had the drafting of the Declaration, and then we had another committee of the Second Continental Congress. They wanted to draft a plan for the government after independence. They need to make rules of how it is that government is going to take form. Is it going to have a strong federal government? Is it going to have a strong state government? And in the end, who won this debate? It was the people that favored strong state government. Oh my God, I'm going to hit my computer. As you can see, everything froze. So let's get back here. Let's log in. Let's get back to US government. Let's get back to chapter 2. And there we go. Anyway. Now I believe I'll be able to click this. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so it just froze on me. So yeah, you can kind of use this to maybe formulate that first question about the Articles of Confederation. So the plan was to create a confederation. So kind of like, let's be friends. You know, we're not enemies. We are America, but every state is going to kind of be independent. And this idea was mainly the brainchild of John Dickinson. Okay. And again, you can put this stuff in your notes. Remember, one way to put notes is you can copy and paste and then later put it in your own words. So where are my notes? There are my notes. So let me put that kind of centered so I know that that's notes. And then I can write something like that, right? Just remember to keep it in your own words for after. And it was adopted by a lot of the states. It was ratified, and we have the articles. So the plan was that the national government had to be very simple, okay? There was no national courts, no kings, obviously. It was unicameral, so only one house of legislature. And each state could send between 2 and 7 delegates to Congress, okay? So basically, each state just had one vote because these 7 guys went and they voted as a unit, and each state had a vote regardless of the population. So a small state, a big state, everybody got one vote. And Congress ran all aspects of the central government and only had the powers that were written in the article, which were not a lot, basically just to start war. Okay. So the structure of the government was very simple. Each state is basically independent. It's a confederate, right? We don't have too many confederate governments or any today, but if you remember from the last chapter, we talked about this type of government. It's kind of similar to the European Union, but not really, okay? Because they have a little bit more autonomy in the European Union. But think of it like that, okay? It's like we're all friends. We all kind of have a main idea of what we want to be like, but you do your things, I do my things, and that's that, okay? So, what were some of the strengths and weaknesses of this? Well, first, the national government owed a lot of money to foreign governments because of the war, because they bought ships, they bought guns, and things like that. So they had a lot of debt. How are they going to pay this debt if people don't pay taxes to the national government? All right. So we have 13 sovereign states. That's why we have 13 stripes on the American flag. Um, and the states declared themselves independent from not just Europe, but from each other. And look at that. Isn't that cool? It was what I was talking about. So this is the Eurozone. Now with Brexit, England is not part of it, but it's something kind of similar, right? That America tried to create. So people identified themselves as Virginians or South Carolinas more than Americans. So the states weren't really united. And each state had its own money, okay? And this made trade between the different states very difficult. Some states charged high tariffs from one state to another. For example, uh, you know, it would be like if I'm living in Sao Paulo, I'm going to charge very high taxes to get something from Rio de Janeiro. Well, that's complicated if you do it inside of a country, okay? Um, and a lot of states just ignored help from Congress to repay the war debts because they said, hey, this is not my problem. And each state also could decide whether to tax its own citizens and turn that money over to the national treasury or help the state. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to help the state. So the national government was very weak. Okay, it had almost no power to solve these problems. And foreign countries looked at America and said, hey guys, your central government is bad, it's weak. Okay, and also whatever money that they did create had no value. There was no way for them to create a value for this money. Congress passed very few laws because each bill could become law only if delegates from 9 of the 13 states voted for them. Since each state had only a single vote, the votes of any 5 of the smaller states could block a measure that the larger states wanted. So that's complicated too, right? So if the smaller states don't agree with something, they could just send somebody up there and it would go against something that the majority of the people thought was a good idea. And there was no national court system. So every state had its own laws, its own regulations. So as you can see, it was becoming clear that the Confederation, the Articles of Confederation, really weren't going to solve this transition from colonies to an actual country. Despite this, the Confederation made some good contributions. One, it signed a peace treaty with Britain. Okay, it also established a fair policy for people that wanted to settle west of the Appalachians. One of these laws was the Land Ordinance Law of 1785, which allowed the government to survey and divide the Northwest Territory into townships of equal acreage. So there was also the Northwest Ordinance. Are you guys getting flashbacks from U.S. history? Which said that once a state had enough people in it, or not a state, once a territory had enough people in it, it could become a state. It could appoint governors, judges, and that's how America began to grow. Also, Congress set up departments of foreign wars, marine, and treasury. Okay, so this developed a precedent for cabinets that we have today. So again, if you want to take some notes on this, I think it's important that you write about the peace treaty, some of the achievements of the Confederation, establishing fair and consistent policy for settlement, and you can name the 2 laws if you want to, and how it set up departments of foreign affairs. Guys, take good notes. Remember, as we're moving along, maybe it's faster than you can type. You can copy and paste these and write them later in your own words. Or if you're writing on pencil, in paper and pencil, you can write abbreviated and then later transfer it to better notes. Or if this was a lot of information, just say, look, chapter 2, lesson 3, page 4. So you have a mental note. Hey, I want to take some notes from this page later because we have to keep moving. And by the way, this is a technique that you should use even when you go to university, because in university, many of your classes are going to be lectures and a guy's going to talk kind of like this, I'll be honest with you, where the guy's going to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and you just have to write notes, and he's not going to stop, or her, he or she is not going to stop in the middle to say, oh, can you read that again? Or can you go back to that page? Okay. So these are some of the ways. And what were some of the problems? Well, the states didn't see themselves as independent. Well, the states saw themselves as independent from Europe, but also from each other. The states ignored help to pay the war debt. Okay, Congress could not pass laws because if they couldn't get all 9 of the 13 states to vote, it wouldn't pass. They couldn't pass a law. They could only ask for people to, hey, can you follow this law? There was no national court system, but we just read the achievements, right? There was the peace treaty, some settlement laws so people could move west and create states, and the creation of cabinets. So we see that this means, hey, we need a stronger national government. So what led to the dismantling of the Articles of Confederation and the call for the Constitutional Convention? And this is going to help you answer your second journal entry, Shays Rebellion. Let me see who's with me, who has any questions. I see 10 people are watching. Hello, everybody. All right, if you have any questions, just write them there or write them on WhatsApp, and I will answer them the best that I can. So let's get into Shay's Rebellion. Who is Shay? Shea Stadium is in Massachusetts. Boston Red Sox play there. So in Massachusetts, the government increased the taxes on the citizens to pay the state's war debts, okay? But there was an economic depression at the same time because of bad harvest. So people were angry with this rise in debt. So, and on top of that, people that were going to receive the money did not accept the payment, because they said, hey, this money is just like paper. It's not worth anything. So the farmers had to give their property to the government, and others were sent to prison. Oh my God. So in 1786, some farmers said, hey, let's rebel and let's march down to the courts and close them down so that they cannot work and they can't close our farms. Daniel Shea, who was a former captain in the Revolutionary Army, led a group of men that closed the Massachusetts Supreme Court and advanced on a federal arsenal in Springfield. So man, oh man, look at that. They went to the courthouse and they started to fire. They closed down the courthouse, okay? Because they said if the courthouse is closed, they cannot pass a law to make us give up our land or to pay the money that we owe. So the Massachusetts militia confronted and fired on them, ending the rebellion. But news of this rebellion, it spread through the colonies. And it made the creditors very angry, right? Because they said, oh my God, the people are rising against us. And this made Americans very afraid because they said, hey, the national government is not very strong, and this could result in anarchy. So the farmers also said the government is not responding very well. And the government sees that the people are having this problem, it should do something. So a lot of Americans said, we are ready to see a strong national government, okay? And here you have a little letter to George Washington describing this necessity. So in 1787, delegates from the states began meeting and said, we need to change the Articles of Confederation. One, to help regulate trade and make it more effective. Okay, and they called a convention of all the states in Philadelphia to revise the articles. And after a month of debate, they abandoned the Articles of Confederation and said, hey guys, let's start from scratch and write a new constitution. So this is where I showed you the Constitution. This is in Independence Halls. Okay, writing of the Constitution. And we have it right there. And we have a picture of them. There's George Washington. And everybody's sitting inside the hall. And you can visit this place still today. It's in my city of Philadelphia. So when I was your age, I would go there on school trips. And you can go there and see that. You can also see the Liberty Bell, which is right there. And there's the Independence Hall behind it. So we have the Articles of Confederation versus the Constitution. And I'm going to leave this open into the side because later you might want to think about what the difference between one and the other is. And if you want to see a picture, there it is, the Articles of Confederation. Okay, to all to whom, okay, to all to whom. What if we kept the Articles of Confederation? I think I'm going to read this myself later. Sounds like an interesting article. Okay, seems like an interesting article, and it's not very long. So that's a nice article if anybody wants to do some independent study. I will give you the Eric asked, why is the national government weak? Well, today the national government is not weak. But why was it weak before, Eric? Is because the Americans were afraid. The Americans, they were afraid that if the national government became powerful, if the national government became too strong, it would crush the states, and we would have another king and another tyrannical ruler. So because the Americans were afraid of this, they said, let's keep the national government small and give power to the separate states, and they can do what they want. But as we see, it didn't work out very well because, these states want to do this, these states want to do this, and look, where is the unity? They should all be here together, but they're all doing their own thing. One is like that, the other's like that, the other's like that, and they're all moving in different directions. So they said, hey, let's have everything together. The states can still be kind of independent in their own way, but it needs to be held together by a bond, a central government. Today, the Articles of Confederation are not used at all. So they're worth nothing. I mean, it's a historical document that's important to understand U.S. government. But they're not worth anything because when the founders began to realize there were so many problems with this document, their first idea was, hey, let's edit the document. And then they looked and they said, you know what, this is not working, throw it in the trash, let's write a new article. In this case, it's the US Constitution, which we are going to look at now. Which will be lesson 4. What influenced the development of our government Institutions. Assume that you move to an island that has never been inhabited before. Several thousand other people have also moved there in the past year. Everyone agrees that the island needs to have some rules and someone needs to be in charge. You must create a plan to choose the leaders in the fairest way possible. Uh-oh, this sounds like a journal question. Let's find out. So before we do, this is what you should have in your computer right now. Chapter 2, Lesson 2, I'm sorry, Lesson 3, Journal. First, you have this question about what do you think is the fairest way, and you can see that you can write an answer similar to mine, okay? And you can kind of copy that for this, because it's basically the same question, okay? I don't know why my B went over there, but okay. Whatever. And then, which do you think is the most fair? So we just read a lot about the Articles of Confederation. You can answer those questions. And then we just answered question number 2. God, there's people on the street making a lot of noise. I thought we were supposed to be in quarantine. Oops. I don't know what is happening today, guys. I'm having a really bad computer day. Oh my God. Anyway, we just read about Shays' Rebellion, right? So where the farmers went and they tried to burn and close the state legislature. What was the importance of it? What change did it lead to? What historical or current event could be compared to Shays' Rebellion? Something that led to a change in government policy. So you have to think about that. What type of act may have created an actual change to the way that the government operated? So think about that question, and perhaps you will find an answer. If you remember from U.S. history too, there were a lot of things that happened from the Vietnam War, civil rights, women's rights, and things like that. Okay? So in some of these aren't rebellions, but they're protests, but it'll be in the same idea. Let's go back to Blackboard because I want to get my lesson 4 notes. Creating a constitution. So I need a separate page for this. So I'm going to just open a separate page. I'm going to put here chapter 3, lesson chapter 2, right? Yeah. Lesson 4 journal. We'll try to find out what the journal entry is for chapter 2, lesson 4. Take notes, take notes. Journal. Oh, it's right in the beginning. Okay. And hey, look at that. I was right. It's this very first question in the lesson is going to be my journal entry. So you move to the island. What are you going to do to form a government? Who should get to decide what the rules should be? Okay. Should families vote as a unit, or can one person in the family get his or her own votes? Should all families get one vote regardless of the size? or should families with 6 children or more votes than families with 2 kids? So these are some of the things you want to consider if you're creating a small government on an island. How is your government going to be set up? Okay. Let's see if there is more. Is there a second journal entry? A lot of this is review from US history. And it doesn't look like it. It looks like only one journal entry. Let's just double check. Yep, just that one journal entry. So let's move it. Let's move it, move it, move it. So first there were the articles. They needed more federal power and created the Constitution, which is stronger. Yep, you got it. That's basically it, Mohammed. And we're going to look at the Constitution right now. Oh, there's 8 pages, so we're going to move a little faster so we can finish all 8. Okay, so the Constitution, there were some agreements and compromises, okay? So they started this Constitutional Convention in 87. There were a bunch of delegates that went there to meet George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, debated a lot in these conventions. A lot of people from all over made a lot of contributions. James Madison from Virginia. He took a lot of careful notes on the work of the convention. And eventually everybody chose George Washington to preside over the meeting. He was going to be the leader. That's why in that picture that I showed you of the Constitutional Convention, you have Constitutional Convention. You have a picture of George Washington, usually right there, okay? So he became the leader of the convention. And the public and the press were prevented from attending the sessions because in this private setting, the delegates could talk freely. So they decided that they were going to abandon the Articles of Confederation, basically for the reasons that Muhammad said. But they all said, hey, we want limited and representative government, okay? And we feel that the national government, in order for it to not become too strong, should be divided among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, okay? And they also believed that it was necessary to limit the power of the states to make money, okay? So the money became controlled by the national government, and the national government was going to have 3 branches. Remember this, the 3 branches of power. Again, a lot of review from US history, okay? But the question was, how do we do this? We have 2 possible plans, the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan. And the Virginia plan said, hey, we need a strong national legislature with 2 chambers. The lower one chosen by the people, and the upper chamber to be chosen by the lower. And the number of legislatures would vary from state to state, depending on the population. And the legislature could not bar any state laws that it found unconstitutional. I'm sorry, it would have the power to do this, okay? And a strong executive would be chosen by the national legislature. And third, a national judiciary would be appointed by the legislature. And the delegates debated the Virginia plan for more than 2 weeks. But the delegates from the smaller states started to say that, hey, there's a problem with this plan, is that the smaller states are not going to have as much power as the bigger states, right? So the smaller states wanted a less powerful government with more independence for the states. And the Virginia plan seemed like it was giving more power to the bigger states and thus more power to the national government to control the smaller states. So we have the New Jersey plan. It said, hey, let's keep two of the features of the Articles of Confederation. First, the government would have a unicameral legislature with one vote for each state. So this made every state as equally powerful. And the second is that the nation would continue as a confederation. Congress, however, would be strengthened by having the power to impose taxes and regulate trade. The executive branch would be weak, okay, having more than one person there. And the national judiciary would have limited power and would be appointed by the executive. So this became very, very much a heated debate because Virginia wanted a little bit more power to the central government, wanted states to be represented by population. New Jersey said, no, we think that states should be represented by one person only, and that the executive branch should be even weaker. Okay. So what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And by the way, if you want to look, I don't know why this is open, because it's not the right. Aha. So let me close this one and stick with this one. That was from the history class I just taught. Virginia plan versus New Jersey plan. In case this comes up in your quizzes, look at that. It's always nice, guys. Google is your friend. Favored by larger states, 2 houses of Congress, representation based on population, created a stronger national government. Favored by small states, 1 house of Congress. Each state would have equal representation, similar to the Articles of Confederation. And then we have a compromise. I wonder if you guys remember the name of the guy who created the compromise. Connecticut Compromise. So we have this idea that comes in and says, hey, we can kind of find a middle ground. So the compromise said, why don't we have a bicameral legislature of 2 houses? The House of Representatives is based on population, and the Senate is based on 2 members from each state. The larger states would have an advantage in the House of Representatives, where representation would be based on population. And the Senate obviously would help the smaller states, okay? They would be protected by the Senate. And Congress would be able to impose taxes, and all the laws concerning taxes and spending would originate in the House. And what about the president? There was a further disagreement over whether the president should be elected directly by the people, by the Congress, or by state legislature. As a compromise, the delegates decided on the Electoral College, which is still used today. In this system, a voter from each state selects electors to choose the president. And the president's 4-year term was a compromise between those who wanted a longer term and those feared a long term would give the president more power. So this is the system we have in America today for presidential elections. It's not a direct vote like in Brazil. Instead, whenever there's a local election for governor, for mayor, for any type of political office within the state, city, municipality, when you vote for those people, you are actually voting for those people to represent you in the national election. So they will vote based on what the popular vote is in the state, but also because they want to follow what their constituents want. Okay, so if I vote mainly Republican in, I don't know, Texas, then chances are in the next election, Donald Trump is going to win more of the electoral votes in Texas. Now, there is a chance, and this has happened before. Imagine if the majority of Texas votes Democrat, which is probably going to be Joe Biden. Even if the governor of Texas is a Republican, he kind of has to go with the state. Okay, I mean, it's not a law, but traditionally they go with the popular vote of the state. But there have been a few times where this did not happen, and the Republican candidate said, hey, I don't want to vote for the Democratic guy. I'm going to vote for the Republican, and vice versa. Okay, so it's a complex system in one way. In another way, not so much. It's representative, right? Commerce and the slave trade. There needed to be a third compromise, which had to do with commerce and the slave trade, okay, but not slavery. But how are we going to continue to trade enslaved people? The North, they wanted the federal government to have complete control over trade, but the South were afraid that if the federal government did this, they would interfere with the slave trade. So then they also said, hey man, there's a lot of exports that come out of the South. So we don't want the North in Congress to impose taxes or anything like this that's going to hurt the South. So to compromise, the delegates determined that Congress would have the power to regulate interstate commerce in commerce with foreign countries, but it would not be able to ban the slave trade, okay, in order to protect the South's export. So Congress regulates trade among all the states to try to make it fair for everybody so that the South doesn't have a lot of taxes with stuff coming from the North and vice versa. So as a result, the United States is one of the few nations in the world today that does not directly tax goods that it exports. Okay, so there aren't exports on goods. So what was the 3/5 compromise? What is that exactly? If anybody remembers that from last year, the 3/5 compromise had to do with population, and that some states had more slaves than people that were free. So states in the North and the South could not agree on how slaves would be counted. It was decided that every 5 slaves would count as 3 people for taxation and representation purposes. Okay? So every 5 slaves is equal to 3 people. The South wanted this because they said, hey, we can get more representation because we have more people, which are the slaves. But the North didn't like this because they said, hey, these slaves, they don't have any rights, but you're counting them as people. So let's have a compromise. So what was the debate like? The Constitution was completed in 87. 39 delegates signed the document, including Ben Franklin, who had to be helped to the table to sign. Before the new Constitution could become law, it had to be ratified by 9 of the 13 states. Okay, 3/4, I believe. And the Constitution went into effect in 1788 when New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify it. But there was a lot of debate, and Rhode Island became the last state to ratify the Constitution. And that's where we start to get to the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, because this ratification divided people. Okay, the Federalists, they favored the Constitution. Okay, they believed in a strong federal government, and their support came from merchants and other cities in the coastal regions. And then the Anti-Federalists were against the Constitution, and they got a lot more support from farmers and workers, and they were afraid of a strong national government. The Anti-Federalists criticized the Constitution for having been drafted in secret. They claimed the document was extra legal, okay, not sanctioned by law, because Congress had no authority to do this. And they only met to revise the Articles of Confederation. So they also said that the Constitution took power from the states. And their strongest argument was that the Constitution lacked the Bill of Rights to protect citizens from their own government. The convention, in fact, considered adding a list of people's rights, but they never got to it. But this was good enough for the Anti-Federalists that said that without a Bill of Rights, a strong national government can take away the rights that we want in the revolution. One of the strongest opponents of the Constitution was Patrick Henry, and he made a big speech in order to get everybody to believe that we need a Bill of Rights. And that's where we get the Bill of Rights. But again, if you need help studying this for quizzes, Anti-Federalist versus Federalist, I'm sure we're going to get a nice little diagram. Oh, I like this because it shows the pictures of the who was for and who was against. So that's a nice little image right there. Let's see if we have any questions. I see a lot of tacos. All right, Eric. Eric is funny. Anyway. So the Federalists claimed that only a strong national government could protect the nation from enemies abroad and solve the country's internal problems. And they also said that 8 of the states already had Bill of Rights. Okay, but in the end, the Anti-Federalists won the argument, and they said we are going to add a Bill of Rights. That's going to be the first thing we do when the new government meets. With the promise of the Bill of Rights, people started to favor the Constitution a little bit more. Small states ratified it quickly because they were pleased by equal representation. And eventually, all the states, right, ratified it, including New York and Virginia. Okay? To help with the Battle of New York, supporters published more than 80 essays defending the new Constitution. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison wrote most of the essays, called the Federalist Papers. Oh, we had to read that in high school. Madison defined a republic as a government which derives its power directly or indirectly from the great body of the people and is administered by persons holding their office for a limited period. Madison also answered the opposition's fear that a republic had to be a small government. In the Federalist, he wrote, "Extend the sphere, and you take in a greater variety of parties and interests. You make it less probable that a majority of the whole will have a common motive to invade the rights of other citizens. So the Federalists won in New York by 3 votes, and the new government soon begins to work. George Washington was elected president. John Adams was vice president. Voters elected senators and representatives. And finally, they met for the first time in Federal Hall in New York City, which was the temporary capital of America. So America had Philadelphia as a capital, New York City as a capital, and today it is Washington, D.C. And that's when we get the first amendments. Congress approved 12 of them, and the state ratified 10 of them in 1791, which became the Bill of Rights. And I wonder what the first 12 amendments were that were not ratified. So, do you think it was necessary to have a Bill of Rights? That is the question. Okay. Guys, that's the end of this lesson in this chapter, chapter 2. So what does that mean? Does that mean we all get to sleep now? No. It means that you have to answer your questions. Chapter 2 journal, which had to do with if you had an island, how would you organize this government? And in chapter 2, you also want to include your notes. Right there. And you have to find a way to organize this. So the quizzes, I would do them at the end of every week, but you also have to find time to do your journal assignments. So your journal assignments, maybe you can do on Wednesday. This Thursday, there's not going to be class because you're going to be watching either Miss Summer or Mr. Gibson's class. But, if you need time to do this on Friday, although an option for your quizzes, I don't know if this is possible, guys, I don't know how your internet is that maybe you can leave them open as we study. I don't know if that's possible. They're open book, so it wouldn't be against the rules technically, I guess, if you did the quizzes as we were studying. But the key is you need to find at least an hour to be able to do your journals and your quizzes. Otherwise, you will be backed up. If you have any questions, please ask me. That's what I'm here for. Hey, it's me. I'm going to see if I can find something cool. If anybody has any questions, I am here. Check that out. I have a little GIF. Little GIF. And possibly next week, what we can do is also just kind of have a laboratory class. Although I do kind of want to move ahead. Because if we're not having the two classes, we do need to move ahead. I hope everybody is well during this corona. Okay, guys, if there are no questions, which seems like there are, I'm going to log off from here. Okay, so let's focus on doing these quizzes all the way up to chapter 2, and then also the journal entries. And I will see you guys only next week, next Tuesday. So if you're there, say adios, amigos. I'm ending broadcast now.